Good morning, Faith Presbyterian Church. This is your pastor, Anthony Claudius, with Sunday morning's message. We are in the midst of a pandemic. This is the coronavirus 19, and unfortunately, I cannot be face-to-face with you all, and I want to tell you, this is killing me. I miss you all, and I love you. So I want to address an issue that I am seeing online and through talking with others, and that issue is fear. Whether that takes the form of anxiety or panic, people are very fearful right now, and the Bible addresses fear. So here's the main theme of my message, and that's faith over fear. Faith over fear. So one thing that we know is that human beings like certainty. We are hardwired to want to know what is happening. When things feel uncertain or when we don't feel safe, it's normal to feel stressed. This very reaction, while it's there to protect us, can also cause all sorts of havoc when there is a sense of uncertainty and conflicting information around us. I listened to a great message by Pastor Tony Evans earlier today, and he said this is a time to be reasonably concerned, but not to worry. So think about it. Concerned about what? About social distancing, cleaning out our houses, taking care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, and physically. And out of the three, I think the physically part is something that folks are not doing as much as the others. So I want to encourage you to think about your own physical health, because a great way to keep the flu away or any sickness is for you to be healthy. So think about adding some garlic to your diet. God knows that I don't have to worry about that because there's always garlic in my diet. But take care of yourself. So God doesn't want you overcome with worry, because you'll lose yourself, you'll lose your family, and you'll lose your friends. Let me say that one more time. God does not want you overcome with worry, because you will lose yourself, your family, and your friends. There are so many places in the Bible where God addresses fear, and he gives either instruction or sends somebody to exemplify this idea of having faith over fear. But today I'm going to highlight one person, and it's a super popular part of the Bible, and it's from 1 Samuel 17, and this is none other than David versus Goliath. So I want to pick up this story sort of in the middle, as Goliath there's a standoff between the armies, and Goliath is the warrior that is keeping everything at a standstill. Basically, Israel was terrified of this man. And then we read that early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. And David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were doing. And as he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel," which is kind of cool. So the idea was, if there's someone in Israel that will take on Goliath and beat him, it comes with this promise from the king that he will give great wealth to the man. Well, who doesn't want great wealth? He will also give him his daughter in marriage, so hopefully she was cute. And finally, this person will be exempt from taxes, but not only him, his entire family. Now, that's a great deal. So David asked the men standing near, "What will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is the uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." So David asks, and they tell him those three things. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the man, he burned with anger at him and said, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." So, the background is you can see that there's some sibling rivalry there, because the older brother does not like that the youngest brother is there to ask about what's going on. He's basically saying, know your role, get back on the as a shepherd and shepherd those sheep. Leave this for the important people. And David says, "What have I done? I can't even speak." He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. So he's just confirming. He wants to make sure that his ducks are in a row and what he's hearing is true. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. So Saul's the king at the time, and he's hearing that there's this David that's asking about Goliath. So David says to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." And Saul says, "You were not able to go out and fight this Philistine. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David says to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it and rescued the sheep from his mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. Now this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Really, it's such a fantastic story. We always get the Sunday school version, but the real life version is a much more aggressive, bloody situation. And you probably know the rest. This is where David takes what he's good at, which is his sling and those rocks, and he sinks them straight in Goliath's head. And a lesser known part of this passage is when Goliath is down, David takes the sword and cuts his head completely off and holds it up in such a almost like Braveheart with what was his face? Played Braveheart. I can't remember his name. Mel Gibson. Yeah, so it reminds you of a scene like that. But here's the point. While everyone was comparing Goliath to Israel's greatest warrior, David was comparing Goliath to God. I don't want you to be controlled by your fear. I'm not saying don't use cautions. Of course we use precautions. Remember, David had a background in fighting scary things. He mentions he fought lions and bears and all that good stuff, and he defeated them. So he had some background. It just looked a lot different than normal military weapons. So don't be controlled by your fear. I know you've heard this. If you haven't, it's worth repeating. In the Bible, we hear "do not fear" 365 times. That means from Genesis to Revelation, you hear that phrase repeated 365 times. And if you think about it, in 1 year, there are 365 days. That's one "do not fear" for every day. Like I said before, this idea of faith over fear is all through the Bible. When Joshua was going to lead the people into the promised land, the first thing that God instructs him is this: "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you will go." That's a pretty cool command. He's saying, I know there's going to be times in the future when you're facing your enemy that you're going to be scared. But he says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, because I'm with you. So I want to get real practical. Right now, you and I are planting seeds, okay? We are planting seeds. There are eyes on you and I right now. And who are those eyes? That is your children, grandchildren. It's your family. It's your church. It's your neighbors. You name it. You are planting seeds right now. There's an old phrase that says, learning is not taught, it is caught. Learning is not taught, it is caught. Meaning, people are watching the way you live. So let me get personal. Do I find myself scared? At times, yeah. But I take proper precautions. I prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But in the meantime, I'm not going to allow my friends, my family, my church, and especially my children see me fold up. Because you are literally training those around you right now by how you handle the situation. I love what Desmond Tutu says. He says, hope is being able to see the light despite the darkness. So I want to give some very practical steps. I know there's a large part of our society that is filled with anxiety. We feel helpless. So in times like this, our mental health can suffer. It might feel more on edge. You might feel more on edge, angry, helpless, sad. You might notice that you're more frustrated with others or want to completely avoid any reminders about what is happening in the world. So if you struggle with mental wellness, I'm going to give you 6 things that you can do, 6 steps you can take. Actually, 5 steps. The first is separate what is in your control from what is not. Separate what is in your control from what is not. There are things you can do, and it's helpful to focus on these. So wash your hands. Remind others to wash their hands. Take your vitamins. Make smart decisions. Secondly, do what helps you feel a sense of safety. And this is going to be different for everyone, and it's smart not to compare yourselves to everyone else. It's okay if you've decided what makes you feel safe and add some boundaries in your life. Third is get outside. Go for a walk. Go to the park. Pump up the tires in your bike. It's springtime. And go get outside. Exercise will help you immensely. Fourth, challenge yourself to stay present. You know, when you are worried, you tend to think about the future. But Jesus said, don't be anxious for nothing. When we dwell on the future, we become anxious. When we dwell on the past, we become depressed. Stay in the future. We're quarantined right now. There's no school. If you find yourself with your kids at home, make it a memory. Make it a fun time. Pretend that in 10 years you look back on this and you can say, remember when we were all cooped up in the house, and make some really cool memories. Finally, stay connected and reach out if you need help. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Talk to your pastor. It's important to get these feelings out if you're feeling anxious. Remember, we are in this together. So I'll leave you with this quote. Remember that beauty can bloom from seeds planted during your darkest moments. If you're struggling with anxiety, if you're feeling hopeless, I want you to take a piece of paper and write this out nice and big. Remember that beauty can bloom from seeds planted during your darkest moments. Well, I hope that this message is something that you found helpful. I hope that it's relevant in your life. I trust that it is. If you find that this is something that has helped you and want to share the message, I would encourage you to share this with your friends. It's as easy as ever to get the message out right now. Just simply click and share it on your Facebook feed. Text it to your friends. I know that there's a lot of folks out there that are struggling, so hopefully this can be a light in a very dark time.